Beautiful. Welcome everyone to Unity in Ashland this morning on this day that is called Epiphany in the Christian calendar. It's also called the 12th day of Christmas. So today we're going to be celebrating that, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we go along. And we're so blessed this morning to have Dan and Jackie, who come from the group Patchy Sanders, to be our music today. So, you know, it's going to be that. Welcome you and your friends. Thanks for being here. And welcome everybody else, too. Is anybody here for the first time? Ever? Wow, thanks. Are you from Ashland? What's your name?
Two names. James Jade.
James Jade. Friday are having a wonderful Ghost Town meditation group that's meeting. Talk to Kathy Garrett for directions as to where on Friday at 1:30.
Treasurer.
And Unity's board still needs a treasurer, so be searching your heart or think of anyone that you might know who might be good at that. Thank you. Patrice, do you know what that is? What the celebration is about? Yeah, a lot of us have forgotten, aren't in tune with this. We're kind of post-Christian and post-church, most of us are. We're not in tune with these old liturgies, you know, but it's the day that the three wise men arrived at the cradle of the baby Jesus and brought those gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So for many centuries, the church celebrated this event with a big feast day called Epiphany, and it was celebrated almost as big as Easter or Christmas were. It's a very important celebration. The word epiphany, we still use it in our language, and it's a moment of sudden, intuitive understanding, like a flash of insight, a moment of enlightenment. And it stems from the root meaning of the Greek word that means an appearance or a manifestation of the divine in ordinary life. So everybody longs for this light of the great mystery, even we unitic types shy away from these old, suffocating, oppressive concepts of the divine. I like that word, don't you, unitic? It's got a lot of implications. Even if we didn't grow up knowing the story of the Feast Day of Epiphany, we can still ask the question together today, how can we live our lives so that we're more likely to experience epiphanies? And I'd like to begin by setting the sacred space together by having you can feel into this poem. It's a beautiful poem by Rumi. And it'll be followed, we'll go right into the song called The Ancient Ones that Dan and Jackie have written. So here's the poem. On a day when the wind is perfect, the sail just needs to open and the world is full of beauty. Today is such a day. My eyes are like the sun that makes promises, the promise of life that it always keeps each morning. The living heart gives to us, as does that luminous sphere, the sun, both caressing the earth with great tenderness. The living heart gives to us, as does that luminous sphere, the sun. If any of you saw the flyer for this week, it had a heart with the sun bursting out of it. The living heart gives to us, as does that luminous sphere of the sun. This is a breeze that can enter the soul, this love I know. It plays a drum. Arms move around me. Who can contain themselves before such beauty? Peace is beautiful. But ecstatic dance is even more fun and less narcissistic. Gregarious, the beloved makes our lips smile. On a day when the wind is perfect, the sail just needs to open, and the love starts moving in our hearts. Today is such a day. Thanks for welcoming Dan and Jackie.
Good morning, everybody. my words will drain your lakes of fear. Although I know my words are only just words, and I believe in the ancient ones, and I believe that they had it right when God was moon and God was earth and God was sun and God was everyone. And I believe in the ancient ones, and I believe that they had it right when God was moon and God was earth and God was sun and God was everyone. And today I feel as if I've lost my mind. It feels so good to live without my mind. I listen close when my elders sing. My heart pumps the blood in my lungs. Inhale the sounds and leave their tongues. Oh, my words, they are so helpless still that song. I listen close when my elders sing. My heart pumps the blood in my lungs. Inhale the sounds and leave their tongues. Oh, my words, they are so helpless till they're sung. Oh, my words, they are so helpless till they're sung.
You're in store for some great music today. And we'd like to have the children come up now with Patrice, and also have our singers come back, because we've got a special song to bless the children with today. And it's really a fun song that everybody's going to enjoy singing. And it's about how, as this previous song was saying, you know, ancient ones, they thought about God and Goddess being in every cell of our being. Not just out there somewhere, not far away from us, but right close to us. And when we feel that in our own hearts, that we've got God's Spirit right there inside of us, that's when we think to say things to children like, we behold the Christ light shining in you, like we always have been saying to them traditionally. But this song says it in a different way. It's a fun song that says, in every cell, in every little cell of my body is happy. Yeah. So see how you like it, okay? And it's a sing-along if you start to catch on to it, okay?
Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well.
That song just does make you feel that way, doesn't it? So, I'd like you to stand together with me, and by way of creating our sacred space together as the children have gone out, and we draw in and recognize our presence with one another, and calling out to the presence of the Father. I'd like us to invite the protection of the four directions. One time when I was young, I had a dream, and the vision was that the beings of the four directions actually exist. That humans didn't just make this up, but somehow there are these guardian beings for planet Earth that do protect us. And so ancient ones knew that every time we want to create a sacred space together, that we should call upon the guardians who are here protecting us. So we turn first of all to the east, which is straight ahead. Guardians of the great gates of the east, we call upon the eagle that gives us such inspiration, being such a high-flying one. We know that if we wait patiently, that we too can mount up on wings of eagles. We can walk and not be weary and run and not faint. So we ask for that power to wait, and that great perspicacity will come to us where we see things from a God's eye view. So come to us now, guardians of the east, and help us. Aho. Aho. Thank you. And now let's turn to the south. Great guardians of the watchtowers of the south. We picture the warm summer days, and many of our friends have actually gone south for the winter to warm up. We know that the warmth and the passionate fires of our hearts is so important to us, and that it keeps going through the winter months deep within us. Like that song said, the cells of our being are happy and well, and there's this fire inside of us. So we thank you so much, powers of the south, for bringing us this passion and fire. Come and be with us now as we worship together. Thank you, powers of the south. Aho. Aho. Then we turn to the west. Guardians of the great gates of the west, sea creatures like the whales and dolphins, and also the black bear. You let us know that it's safe and okay to go deep inside, deeper than deep, deep into the darkness, as deep as we need to go to find our maturity. So come and be with us now and encourage our hearts, powers of the West. Aho. And then we turn to the north. Great guardians of the North Gate. We're so blessed to see the great mountains here in our midst with the whitecaps and their great grounding down into the earth, and we can feel our own bodies able to stand like this with our legs apart a little bit and feel how we too are an axis mundi, a great channel between heaven and earth. We too are more than just our bodies. We celebrate that we have been through many cycles of life, death, and rebirth. And we celebrate that the life on this planet goes on and on. In the ancient mountains we see the cycles of life, and we're so thankful to play our part in the great mystery. We welcome you, powers of the north. Be with us now. Aho. Aho. And then turn with me again toward the center and put your hand on your heart and realize that we couldn't be here together. We couldn't really be spiritual beings if it weren't for our own hearts and the hearts of one another. So we're so thankful to be amidst these like-hearted beings here today. Bless each heart that is here, and each of your hearts, if you've brought needs for yourself or for others, reach out. Reach out to Spirit, reach out to one another, and make sure that those needs get met before you leave here today. We welcome you, each one of your sacred hearts. Thank you. Aho. We have quite a bit of beautiful poetry to share with you today. I had so many poems that came to me that really fit the theme of this week, so it was hard to choose, so I'm going to flood you with some beautiful poetry. Many of our favorite poets. This one is one of the sonnets by Rainer Maria Rilke. And you'll see how it fits beautifully with the next song called The Tree that they're going to sing for us. And it says, "How surely gravity's law, strong as an ocean current, takes hold of even the strongest thing and pulls it toward the heart of the world. Each thing, each stone, blossom, child is held in place. Only we in our arrogance push out beyond what we belong to for some empty freedom. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise up rooted like trees. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise up rooted like trees. Instead, we entangle ourselves in knots of our own making and struggle lonely and confused. So like children, we can begin again to learn from the things because they are in God's heart. They never left her. This is what the things of creation can teach us: to fall, patiently to trust our heaviness. Even a bird has to do that before it can fly.
Sounded like you wrote that poem for the sun.
I had a dream that I died, but didn't feel the fear of giving up. I fell 50 feet from an old red oak. All the branches broke, the lightning struck. sank into the ground and swam with the rocks, and the bones of the birds left before. And me, I couldn't be happier than I had learned what I was living for. With no air to breathe, I tried for the surface, but the weight of the rocks held my arms in their mercy. So I mustered all the strength that I'd ever had, and I yelled out for help, hoping that someone would pass. A woman came and dug me out of the earth. She said, "You're too old for another human bird." She put me back in the ground, and I grew as a tree. In the pouring rain, nothing bothers me. I lost my voice and I lost my clothes. Like a child, I knew I never had a need for those dirty clothes. My arms grew wide and my feet dug in. I offered shade and shelter to all my friends. But then the rain froze and I was asleep, so I took a deep breath to save my energy. But when I awoke, all my leaves were gone. I tried not to panic, as if nothing's wrong. And from the south, the heavy swirling wind lifted me off of the ground somewhere I'd never been. And I felt just like I was a king. My trunk had dissolved and my frozen branches turned to wings. With the power of flight, my eyes did see all the miracles of everybody, everywhere and everything. Just like a fertile plain, or the month of May, everything is sane, and I cannot complain. I had a dream that I died, but didn't feel the fear of giving up.
So, as you can hear in that song and the sonnet by Rilke, I'm still talking to you about letting go of things as we enter into this new year and are leaving the past year. I just wanted to remind you that we're leaving the year of the horse in the Chinese astrology and going into the year of the sheep. Remember last year when I was talking to you about the year of the horse and what it would mean? It said that in the first half of the year we would be really examining things that weren't working anymore and that we had to let go of. And the horse had a lot of determination to do that, because then in the second part of the year we would be starting to leap forward. And the great energy of the horse would be there to help us to leap forward. Well, we're still in the year of the green horse according to Chinese astrology for a little bit longer, right, until the beginning of February. So we're approaching the tail end of that process of severe testing, where relationships and jobs and personal ambitions have been put to the test. And we've got a little bit longer to be examining these relationships and jobs and visions and realize some of them passed the test this past year and some of them didn't. And right now what's happening is that you're being asked to focus in and streamline so that you can really gallop ahead in this year to come. But in this year to come, it's about the sheep, and so it's about going forward in a whole group. The sheep are very herd-oriented, and they're also about group mind. And so it's a time, you can see why the year of the horse was important before the year of the sheep, because we want to make sure what we're following. And so that's why I want to talk to you today about the wise heart, how we can be following from a wise heart and find other beings who also have wise hearts, so that we're joining in with a herd of sheep that's really going where we want to go. It's said that in 2015 that the world dream, or the myth of our world, in other words, is being recreated. And we've known this, we've been talking about this for a long time, but in 2015 it says that this deep, unconscious story that's deeper than deep, that's been so set in one way, is really changing and turning, and is going to be transforming and coming forth in a whole nother way. So the sheep draws strength from safety in numbers during this time of change like that. So as more and more people awaken out of the old, obsolete worldviews, this new dream is becoming seeded in the collective unconscious. Don't you feel that? Yeah. There's no year better than a sheep year for planting dreams in really deep soil and nurturing them with loving care and kindness and strength and durability. But it requires of us to go deeper than deep. Sometimes we've got to let go of the things that we've loved and attached so much of our passion to, so that we can go deeper than deep. One time in my life when I was going through that kind of big letting go and loss, Spirit came to me and actually said something like, I will never really take things away from you. I only make you grow. So I've asked Tony to come and read a wonderful poem by D.H. Lawrence. It's about this going deeper than deep. You can probably stand by one of those mics.
Go deeper than love. Go deeper than love, for the soul has greater depths. Love is like the grass, but the heart is deep, wild rock, molten, yet dense and permanent. Go down to your deep old heart and lose sight of yourself, and lose sight of me, the me whom you turbulently loved. Let us lose sight of ourselves and break the mirrors, for the fierce curve of our lives is moving again to the depths, out of sight, in the deep living heart.
Would you read it all over one more time? Because it's short and I just want it to really sink in.
Yeah. Go deeper than love, for the soul has greater depths. Love is like the grass, but the heart is deep, wild rock, molten, yet dense and permanent. Go down to your deep old heart and lose sight of yourself, and lose sight of me, the me whom you turbulently loved. Let us lose sight of ourselves and break the mirrors, for the fierce curve of our lives is moving again to the depths, out of sight, in the deep living heart.
Now we're going to have another poetry song. You can tell that they write songs like full of poetry too, right? This one's called Whistling Bird Blacksmith. And they told me that it's a conversation with a bird that lets you know that there's always enough love, even when you have to let go. There's always enough love for all of us to share. If you ever get the guts to remember me and your connection to the earth. It's beautiful, beautiful poem.
been asleep with rag and tattered dreams. The morning comes for you, I'll wait. Oh, but I'll forget, I'll say goodbye, my love. It's hard, my love, to know that there's enough. And oh, I've been anxious, I'm a battered bird. It's hard, my love, it's hard, my love, to know that there's enough. Love enough, love enough, love enough, love enough, love enough, love enough. She's a dancer, she's a piper, and she floods the Milky Way. And she hopes that only she can call Earth home one day. And she hopes that only she can call Earth home one day. And I hope that only I can call Earth home one day. And oh, you silly goose, I don't ever sleep, or comb my hair, or brush my teeth,
Or shave your beard.
I shaved last night. I'm a drooling fool, so in love with you. And I'll feed you sweet treats, cream with chili spices.
Yuck.
Well, how about with some honey?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'll show you how there is always enough. And if you ever get the guts to remember me, I'll show you how, I'll show you how there is always enough. whistling bird likes me, come nearer you and me. And oh, I'm a whistling bird likes me, from nearer you and me.
Beautiful. And now our other poem. Introduce yourself.
My name is Shannon Magda, and I certainly have been enjoying coming to Unity Church with my family. The poem is The Way Wings Should by Rumi. What will our children do in the morning? Will they wake with their hearts wanting to play the way wings should? Will they have dreamed the needed flights and gathered the strength from the planets that all men and women need to balance the wonderful charms of the earth, so that her power and beauty does not make us forget our own? I know all about the ways of the heart, how it wants to be alive. Love so needs to love that it will endure almost anything, even abuse, just to flicker for a moment. But the sky's mouth is kind. Its song will never hurt you, for I sing those words. What will our children do in the morning if they do not see us fly?
So you can hear a theme going on here, right? There's the birds and the flying. I loved how the song was talking about that when we really remember who is loving us, how vast that love is, that we can let go of whatever needs to be let go of, because there really is enough. And we remember it, the song said our guts. It's like a gut is a heart, you know. The heart is what actually develops first in an embryo before the brain. And then it links to the brain and informs the brain. So we learn things in our wise hearts, in our guts, that are deeper than our thoughts. And a lot of times our thoughts get attached easily to old ways of being that we've got to let go of and let our heart lead us again. So before I go into the sermon, I wanted to do a time of prayer together where we're thinking about what is it in our lives that we need to let go of still, that we're not quite trusting enough to do that. Or perhaps it's an old concept or an idea about ourselves. Or perhaps it's an idea that something can't be fixed or changed or healed, or that something on the planet can't be, you know. But we're being called right now to really examine, you know, final letting go of old things that have to be let go of so that we can fly. And like that last poem said, so that our children can see us flying. It's very, very important, because we've got the time that we've got here on the planet, and our children really need to see us flying, don't you think? So that they have some hope to follow. So as you think into that and examine your hearts, I you know how we do sometimes, I'd like you to call out your prayer requests. And so, prayer requests, you know, I'm not trying to make it complicated. It can just be prayer requests for healing of loved ones, for healing of things on the planet, for things that you feel so maybe touched about that you really want to see change. It's like our best wishes for what we're desiring in our hearts. So as you think into that, just call out some of those heart's desires, those prayers, and then I'll culminate it with a prayer for us. Such a good prayer.
Protection of nature.
For what?
Protection of nature.
Protection of nature.
Cutting the cords of the past.
Cutting the cords of the past.
Faith in the future.
What?
Faith in the future.
Faith in the future.
For the people of France.
For the people of France.
Trust in myself.
Trust in myself, oneself.
Letting go of fear.
Letting go of fear.
Entering into the one divine flow.
The other people of the world, and what was over here?
Entering into the one divine flow of the universe.
Oh, yes. Entering into the one divine flow of the universe.
Letting go of defenses.
Letting go of defenses.
Waking up.
Waking up.
Forgiveness.
Physical healing.
Forgiveness. Physical healing.
Inspired action.
Inspired action.
Clarity.
Clarity.
Having more fun.
Having more fun.
Passionate humility.
Passionate humility.
Deepening community. Building dreams of a community.
Building dreams of a sheep community. Healthy food for all.
Finding a healthy home for my dear friend.
Healthy home.
Pay attention to the last month of the horse.
It's great. You all have just said some great prayers. And you can feel that, can't you feel them resonating in your heart? Like a heart thing, you know. When we speak out these things, we touch one another's hearts. And it enlivens our hearts to hear that we are in a group of like-minded people, because every one of those prayers you could resonate with, right? And it feels true in your heart that we must have these things. So let's close our eyes for a moment and just go into a prayerful state. I'm going to lead you on a brief guided meditation to seal these prayers, these desires of our hearts. Let's acknowledge together in our hearts that everything begins with a prayer. Everything begins with a vision. And then is followed by a choice and an action. These combine and then change manifests. So we pray, Spirit, that we will be people that will expect more and more, that our visions will be coming into reality. We agree to imagine specifically how our prayers will be coming into reality and how this will begin to shift life on planet Earth. Because change happens, first of all, inside of us. So we are those that will expect it in this new year. We are bringing the future into the present. We are imagining our visions already coming about right now, right here, together. We are feeling what it's like to have these prayers that we've spoken answered. We're feeling it in our hearts. And we're knowing that our visions are a guiding light. We know that we are walking the path of heart, and it's a path that illuminates. And we promise to learn the lessons that it offers. We are the ones who we've been waiting for. We are the ones that know that it's time. And we are the ones that trust you to bring these energies and these awarenesses and to empower us so that we can act in accord with the great calling that's upon us. Every time we focus our vision, you give us more power. Every time we step out on faith, we get more ability to manifest our dreams. So we agree together as sheep of your flock to participate in active imagination and to conjure up new patterns of energy, because imagination builds probabilities. Breathe right now and feel the knowing that you have come to. Imagine that each time you exhale, this energy extends out, this vision extends out. Each time you breathe in, like in the great Tonglen prayer, you breathe in and you dissolve all that's worrisome, like the sun melting ice. And as you breathe out, this well-being extends further and further and further out, spreading over more and more of your life and of the lives of those around you. As you walk this path of the wise heart, you are secure always throughout your day and throughout your life. Secure knowing that the great sun rises tomorrow. The great star guides us. And that you are a channel of some of this energy wherever it's needed. You are a bright star being, a light in this world. You are the light of the world. Aho.
Whoa.
So stay with me as I weave us deeper, deeper in here to what this message of Epiphany is all about. As a kid, I really loved the story of the Magi. Those wise men all dressed up in beautiful velvets and silks, and I liked it even better when in the Christmas pageant plays I got to play the wise men. They were the costumes I liked the best, out of the angels or Mary and Joseph, or all the various costumes, the shepherds. Those wise men costumes were gorgeous. I was a girl, so it was a little tricky, but I did get to be the wise men some of the time. They bore these magical gifts too, so we always had beautiful containers that had the gold, frankincense, and myrrh replicas, in them. And then there was the star, the beautiful star that they were following. So it's just a great story, isn't it? It's a wonderful Christmas carol too. We three kings of Orient are. It perfectly captures the spirit of this story. It's really a common part of our Western spiritual inheritance. The oldest version of the story of the Magi has the three wise men did look at the stars, and they were probably Zoroastrians. They weren't Hebrew, they weren't Christian. They were astrologers. And it's probably worth noting that this story only appears one time in the Bible, and that it's pretty sketchy where it does in the book of Matthew. It doesn't even say that there were three. It doesn't say how many there were, so some traditions say there were 12 of them, but I prefer keeping it simple and focused on just the three with their haunting gifts. That's enough to enrich our imaginations as we reflect on what it must have been like, what it is like to glimpse a bright flash of light, to get an insight, a vision, that's something about the intersection of God and humanity coming together in a new way. This, I believe, is what's happening to us on planet Earth in the last few years, that we too are wise-hearted beings who are getting these glimpses, these flashes of insight about some things that are coming that will change everything. Well, legend had it that these three wise beings traveled over 1,200 plus miles of burning and freezing desert, and that they were kings. Maybe people wanted to be clear that even the highest and most powerful can open themselves to holiness, and that holiness and godliness and goodness can show up in the lowliest of things, of settings, like the stable. So legend pictures that there was a black man and a brown man and a white man, and that they all came to kneel before the Holy Mother and a baby in a stable. So I like that. Epiphany happens where wise people of the world, where they come from the east and the west and the south and the north, Black people, brown people, white people, Indians, Jews, Christians, kings and queens, refugees and outcasts, and all the animals of creation too, that we all gather together, seeing this light and humbly worshiping together. Do you have a vision like that? Have you seen that coming upon the earth? I have. I've had nighttime dreams about it. I've had heart's desires about it, where we would all get the same glimpse. We'd all get the same insight, and we'd find our unity together. It's really a unity experience, this Epiphany. It's not the presence anymore of some human-shaped, removed from the earth, judgmental Father presence in the sky that we're talking about. We humans have been longing for a healing experience of something more like, say, the 19th century William Wordsworth felt when he visited that idyllic landscape around Tintern Abbey in 1798. And his first visit was made in his early 20s, and then he returned at the ripe old age of 28. And he wrote this beautiful poem, it's just a short excerpt of it here, that expressed something that I think we can all relate to in this day and age. He said, "For I have learned to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity, I have felt a sense of something sublime, far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, there is a motion and a spirit that is impelling us, all thinking things, all objects of all thought. It's rolling through all things now." Isn't that beautiful? And it reminded me of something that was written almost exactly 2 centuries later by the author Sam Keane. And he was in a spiritual Mecca in a casino in Reno, Nevada. And he was watching multiple TV screens, and it gave him that same sense of epiphany. And he described it a very similar way to what Wordsworth did. He said, "This flying theater invites us to remember that we are creatures of both earth and air. Like the grass of the field, the wind passes over us, and we are gone. Yet we are animated by an insistent urge to transcend our limits, to rise up on the wings of hope, to soar." So you get my theme here about the wings. This inspiration is coming to us all, to rise up on the wings of hope and to soar no matter what our circumstances are. Each of us, each in our own bodies, our own time of life, our own family circumstances and financial circumstances, we are being called to rise up on wings and soar into what is coming. The interesting thing about what Sam Keane is saying is that we're each seized by the knowledge of being earthbound humanity. You know, and Wordsworth said there's still the sad music, but then also there's this music that's being sung like the harmony of the spheres by the gods. So neither Wordsworth nor Keane were striving in some linear, rational way to capture an insight, but both of them were living their lives so that they would be open in certain moments to mystery. And both received these epiphanies, these altered states of readiness, when they'd allowed their hearts to fall into a humble place. So there's the part about the fall, you know. We have to allow our hearts to fall from our self-importance, from our ideas of how things should be or of who we should be, to fall into this humble place. And that's where we receive these epiphanies. That's what's required sometimes, our minds becoming slightly unhinged from what we get them attached to. Certain perspectives we've gotten used to clinging to, we've got to let go, and it might seem like we're losing our minds, like the songs are saying, you know. And we are sort of. We are sort of losing our minds, our stuck perspectives, and we're being open to a grander imagination. I, like Wordsworth and Keane, have personally received the gift of insight into the staggering oneness of it all in unexpected places. like in times of both suffering and joy. How about you? One of my times of receiving an epiphany was on December 21st when we were here together in our whole flock and we sang that song, Hallelujah, over and over again. And something came over us, and I don't know about you, but it was really a moment of being grasped by something greater and feeling like I was soaring. And then I felt that I've soared in the arms of a loved one. How about you? I've made my way to that majestic place by climbing actual mountains. Once I climbed to the top of Mount Fuji, and boy, that was a task. But when I got up there, I had a viewpoint to beat all viewpoints, you know. You could see so far. So sometimes we've got to put some effort into getting to these places of a higher viewpoint. And sometimes it can be lonely, very lonely on the way to these epiphanies. I remember one time I broke my foot and I lost the connection with a loved one, and I was just in my bed and crying in the night. And that's where the epiphany came to me, right? When the light broke in upon me so powerfully that I just sobbed and cried and knew that I was connected, so connected to everyone else that was suffering and to Spirit. So that's what Epiphany is all about. It's a very unity message, that the holy is always part of all that is. It's to be found in the shining stable. It's to be found and refound on the English hillside at Tintern Abbey. It's to be found in the sports bar and a gambling place. It's to be found in the loves and pains of our daily lives. So I'm wanting us to ask ourselves the question, what do our experiences that we're having right now have to do with this story of the Epiphany? What can it mean to you right now? As a person who's living in the 21st century, what we're experiencing is unprecedented. The great technology expansions, the wars, and that we can hear about wars and difficult things like happened in France simultaneously all over the world. So how does this Epiphany story really affect us at this point in the 21st century? Part of the wise men's story that caught my interest as a person in the 21st century this year is how there is some wisdom, some great wisdom that is deeper than deep, that's not connected to any of the traditions. Like these wise men, they weren't connected to Judaism, and yet they caught a glimpse of the star, and they didn't care what spiritual tradition that they were headed toward. They knew it was the King of the Jews that had been prophesied, but they were willing to take off on this big trip and head toward this wisdom, this tremendous calling that was appearing to them, and pretty much irregardless of the specific religious tradition. So what I see in that is that wisdom is a wild and untamable spiritual insight. That wisdom erupts from our human hearts, and it's called wisdom all over the planet with a capital W. So you see that there's wisdom literature all over the planet in the Middle East that was informing them. There was Egyptian versions and Persian versions and all kinds of versions of this Prince of Peace, this time coming when the world would shift. And it was wild and untamable, that wisdom. You can kind of imagine that it had to be pretty wild and untamable, their vision of being open to find this light wherever they were going to find it. They didn't first go to King Herod and say, we've come to find this light, this prophesied being, and they went to a king first, right? But the king knew nothing about it. And so they kept searching until they had an open enough heart to come to a stable. So how open do our hearts have to be to find where this light is going to come for us now on this planet? This wild, untamable wisdom is in fact only found within relationships. This is what Native people have been saying to us all through the centuries. It might be dangerous, it's wild and untamable, yes, but it's intimate. And therefore wisdom is always practical and grounded and inevitably oriented back to our daily lives. So wisdom, I believe, is the great intuition, the mother of any useful spirituality of our times. If something is really true, it's natural, and it's arising out of our common humanity. So there can be variations on the theme of wisdom from different cultures and different religions, different belief systems, but if it's true, it's a common wisdom that we're all feeling. I think the movie Wild that came here not too long ago was so popular amongst us because it's about this wisdom that was gained through the woman's relationship with her mother, and then the loss of her mother, and that moved her on this great exploration, like the wise men moved across the desert. You know, she walked hundreds of miles in search of a deeper, deeper love, that love for herself that had to deepen. How many of you saw the movie Wild when it was here? Some of you, I highly recommend it. You know, that movie could have been called Wild Wisdom, don't you think? Because she came through to such a deep wisdom. Oh. So we need to search no further than our own hearts to find the treasures of wisdom that we need for these times. You hear what I'm saying? We need to search no further than our own hearts. There in our hearts, we come into contact with this greater part of ourselves, where we know that we can embrace more than we have embraced, that we can embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in all of its beauty. Can you feel that? That's what our hearts are being called to do. Many of you said prayers like that, you know, like expanding to embrace nature, to hear the call of nature right now and what it's asking from us. Then this wisdom that we feel in our hearts, this call that we feel, will be tested within our encounters with each other day by day, because it only comes in relationship. So it's going to be proven by the lives that we live on a day-to-day basis with those around us, how deeply we're tuning in to our wise hearts. In Buddhism, it talks about that we have different values that we live by. It says that there's, you know, the temptation to live out of greed, out of ignorance, and out of attachment. Our personalities can get structured and attached to those things. And we need to do spiritual practices that loosen us up from greed, attachment, ignorance. So we've got the Buddhist meditation practice going on. I'm sure you have many practices in your own life, but it's a time when we've really got to amp up our practices so that we are actually transforming our own character and coming to love ourselves so much more. I'll try to bring that through to a conclusion here with a story about a woman who was a teacher, and she was teaching teenagers, and they were pretty rambunctious in the class and not paying attention, and she tried to think of a way that she could get them in touch with the fact that they had a great wisdom in their own hearts, and that yes, she was trying to impart knowledge to them, but the most important thing that she could get across to them as a teacher was to love themselves, and that they had wisdom in their own hearts to draw on. But they were so into the three obscurations I just talked about, like thinking about themselves and their looks and their criticisms of each other and being catty and going after their own goals and not thinking about others, all that kind of stuff that we all can get into, but that the teenage culture was starting to set in. And so what she decided to do was to stop in the middle of class one day and ask them all to take out one piece of paper. And what she did was she wrote the names of every student on the board, 26 students in the class. And then she had them write the name of each of those students on their piece of paper, excluding themselves. And then next to that name, write one good thing that they had noticed about that person. One good thing. And then she had them all hand in their papers. And then that was it. She didn't tell them what was going to happen next. And then she had them go back to their studies of the day. Then a week later, she had collated it all, and she handed back to each student with their name at the top and that list of the 26 things that had been said that were good about them. A few years later, she was invited to go to a funeral of one of those students in the class. He had been in the Gulf War and was killed, and the whole town was coming together to remember him. And at the end of the funeral service, his mother came up to the teacher, and she pulled out of her purse this dirty, crumpled piece of paper and handed it to the teacher and said, "This was the only thing that they sent back to me from his body." He carried it with him everywhere. And the teacher opened it up, and it was that list, the 26 things that were good about him. And as she was reading it, another student, woman who'd been in the class, came up to her and opened her purse, and she took out of her purse an equally crumpled piece of paper and showed it to the teacher, and it was that list of her 26 good things. And then another guy came up, and he took out of his pocket that list. And they all started to cry together and realized that that was such a powerful thing for each other to share those 26 good things. So this is what our wise hearts need to do. We need to know that we are nobly born, that we are nobly born ones, and that we can move into a position of seeing that, of seeing each other from those eyes, of being a nobly born one. In Buddhism it says, "Oh, nobly born one, go toward the light." And I would say, fly toward the light. Accept that you are a beautiful, beautiful being. Talk to one another and tell each other how beautiful you are. It's so important that we do this. And this is how our hearts will be bonded together and come together as we see the nobility in each other. That word nobility, it's such a beautiful word. It comes actually from the same root that G-N-O, gnosis, comes from in the Greek. And the Gnostics, are the ones who saw the beauty in humanity. So, nobly born, see the beauty in one another. There's a statue over in Thailand that for centuries it was all covered up with clay. It was a big Buddha statue, and the people all thought, "Oh, that was so beautiful." But one day somebody ran something into it, and the clay started to chip away. And so they got curious and started to chip more and more at the clay. And lo and behold, underneath the clay that had covered it for centuries was pure gold. So sometimes it's like that in our human lives, that we can walk around and see people and we think, "Oh, they're wonderful, they're nice," but they've got the clay all covering them. But then something happens, something difficult maybe, and it starts to chip away at the clay. The defenses start to come down, and the gold is revealed underneath. So we're in the business at Epiphany of seeing the gold, of letting things be chipped away that need to be chipped away, so that we can see the gold in one another and see the gold in our circumstances. So if we open our hearts enough and humble ourselves enough and have faith enough and set aside enough time that we receive this blessed gift of grace that's called Epiphany, this awakening, then we will be forever changed. And we, like those wise men, will fall on our knees and offer our gifts in return to this planet, to one another, to spirit, and we're all going to be deeply changed. We're going to return home by another way like the wise men did. They didn't go back home the same way, and that's what's going to happen to us. Our daily journeys are going to be slightly different. We're going to be following different roads, and we'll find ourselves on the pathway with many, many other sheep on this planet who are all walking this pathway, this way of the wise heart, as we join together in recognizing the holiness of our world.
sleep, Mrs. Henry. The kids are breaking the rules, the kids are breaking the rules. The kids are breaking the rules, the kids are breaking the rules. You send them back to school. Go to sleep, Mrs. Henry, 'cause I've been losing my mind, I've been losing my mind, I've been losing my mind. Don't you worry, Mrs. Henry, the kids are doing fine, 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 beyond your property line. Whatever happened, Mrs. Henry? I know you'll understand, I know you'll understand, I know you'll understand, I know you'll understand. It's written on my head.
What's that song about? Tell us what that song, how that song came about.
So I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I grew up in a kind of a small neighborhood with a bunch of houses in a cul-de-sac. And and I had friends, you know, some girls up the street, some boys down the street, and we would, you know, ride our tricycle, or what do we call them? Big wheels. We'd ride our big wheels around the neighborhood, and there was like this one house that we were not allowed to go to. But nobody told us like that house is off limits, don't touch that house. It was just kind of like, oh, there's that house that's right next to my house. It's white house, black shutters. It's like, don't touch the grass. Don't look at the mailbox. Don't do anything. So she had kind of this mystical authority over my little group of friends. And when I started to write this song, I had left Pennsylvania. I was living in Portland. And it kind of started with the line, "Go to sleep, Mrs. Henry, because I've been losing my mind, I've been losing my mind." And I was like, who's Mrs. Henry? Well, I'm losing my mind, okay, all right. It's kind of, my process in writing songs is letting it come out, and like what resonates, it's like, okay, this is what this song is about. And so I followed the thread of the song, so to speak. And Mrs. Henry became my next door neighbor growing up, who I loved dearly, but she still had this mystical authority over me that I had to rebel against in some way. And so this is my protest song.
I really like that song for what we're talking about today, don't you, right? There's the Mrs. Henrys in our minds that we've got to rebel against, get where we're going. Stay up here, you guys, because the next thing that we'll do, we're going to bless our offering, and then we're going to gather in our
Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. See, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given
wise men. And the king says to his wise men, I have 3 sons, and I want you to travel the world and find all the world's wisdom, and I want you to put it in one book. So the wise men say, oh yes, king, we are in your service. And so they go and they travel along the highest mountains and the deepest valleys, and they swim in the Caribbean Sea, and they have a great time. And then they go back to the king with their book. They present it to the king, and the king presents it to his 3 sons. And he realizes that he has all the world's wisdom in one book. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. So after a little while, the king grows weary of his book. He says it has too much punctuation, it's too many words, not enough blank space. So he petitions his wise men again. He says, wise men, I want you to travel the world again, and I want you to find all the world's wisdom, and I want you to put it into one sentence with only one punctuation mark. And if you want to put an apostrophe, that's fine with me. So the wise men travel the world. They go to the same mountains, they swim in the same sea, they do the same things that they did before, but they spend a lot more time doing them. And they come back to the king with that one sentence. And they had written, beautifully written calligraphy, and they presented it to the king. And it said, this too shall pass. The king looked at them quizzically, and he said, thank you, wise men. See, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. See, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. So the king is known to get weary of things. He looks at a sentence and he says, this is far too many letters and far too many lines. I want one whole word that encompasses all the world's wisdom. So the wise men, they're in the king's service after all, and they say, oh king, we'll travel the world again. We'll find all the world's wisdom and put it down into one word. And so they leave, and they come back 10 years later, and their beards had grown down to their knees, and their eyebrows had grown down to their chins. They were no the worse for the wear, and they presented the one word to the king, again written in beautiful calligraphy, and the word said, maybe. See, and ye shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. See, and ye shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down. See, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open. Ask, and it shall be given when the love comes tumbling down.
far better for having been here and spread the light.